Hello everyone, and thank you for joining with me today. My name is Lomas Prasad. It is an honor to be granted this opportunity to share our work with you and also to join in the discussions at this esteemed conference. In this presentation, I'll be highlighting how we measure gracilis muscle tendon parameters, and I'll also be presenting muscle tendon unit lengths measured experimentally and how they compare with those predicted using musculoskeletal models. Musculoskeletal models are being utilized in various research fields to answer questions involving human locomotion, and in particular, in scenarios where performing practical experiments are not feasible. To drive acceptance of these models and also to broaden their impact, there must be verification and validation. So the aim of this study was firstly to obtain in vivo gracilis muscle tendon parameters. This included muscle tendon unit lengths, muscle architectural data, and isometric force length data. Then also, experimental MTU lengths were compared with musculoskeletal models in OpenSim. And this represents the scope of this talk today, where experimental MTU lengths were compared with model predictions for each individual and errors are presented as such. Models in OpenSim were linearly scaled according to segment lengths. Data is presented for 15 subjects. MTU force and lengths were measured at 4 joint configurations intraoperatively. These 4 joint configurations are shown in this table and figure below. In vivo muscle forces were measured using a buccal force transducer attached to the external tendon of the gracilis. And also the gracilis was stimulated at 2 Hz and 20 Hz at 50% and 25% of its maximal CMAP current. After the gracilis muscle tendon unit was harvested, it was weighed and photographed. Also using videos of this muscle, 3D models were created using open source photogrammetry and meshing software. While all these experimental data are being collected, as I mentioned previously, the focus of this talk will be looking at MTU lengths and how they compare with model predictions. The graph on the right summarizes MTU lengths and forces measured intraoperatively. Firstly, we have elongation of the MTU that range between 1.5 to 12.1 centimeters as the knee extends. The muscle tendon unit lengths themselves range from 42 to 52.8 centimeters, where the maximum force was observed at joint configuration 3 for both stimulation frequencies, and this corresponded to a MTU length of 49 centimeters. A summary of other parameters being measured is presented in this next table. Now looking at the comparison between experimental MTU lengths and those predicted using musculoskeletal models. Firstly, it was observed that models generally underestimated MTU lengths at the first joint configuration, where they then began to overestimate at the other joint configurations or for longer MTU lengths. It was also observed that predictions got worse the longer the MTU length was, where maximum individual errors were up to 30%. The absolute mean error for all models were between 5% and 11%. Next, looking at muscle length errors, it was observed that muscle length was dependent on tendon slack length used by each model, where models 1 and 3 used a larger tendon slack length compared to the other 2 models. And so models 1 and 3 underestimated muscle length, particularly at joint configuration 1, where individual errors exceeded 40%. Among all models tested, Model 2 was observed to be the best. In conclusion, in vivo gracilis muscle tendon parameters were obtained intraoperatively, where this also included muscle tendon unit lengths, and individual MTU lengths of up to 30% needs further investigation in the context of the function of the muscle and muscle force generation. I thank you for your attention, and this brings me to the end of this talk. I'd like to acknowledge the Department of Veteran Affairs for funding this research project And I'd also like to thank my colleagues at Mayo Clinic and the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab for their input. Thank you.